or knowledge. The person who is after money should save every bit of whatever resources. And person who wants vidya should make use of every kshana, every moment. So that is what this smriti does. It makes every moment count. It channelizes our energies, gives them in the right sends them in the right direction. So the easiest, safest practice is to continuously try and repeat the name of the Lord, our own Ishta Devata. Continuous repetition. We should try to do it as much as possible. As we do it, it gives rise to watchfulness. Presently, we don't know what is happening in our mind. But through this continuous practice of Nama Japa, we get a, so to say, a hang of our mind. We know what exactly is happening, and then we can tackle that. And ultimately, every thought and every action has to be scrutinized. Impulse for every thought and action has to be scrutinized. Whether it is necessary, not necessary, if it is necessary, how it can be performed in the best possible way. So this, at the very micro level, so to say, our sadhana reaches because of this smriti. The smriti sadhana is sadhana at a very micro level. But it, so to say, changes our life. That is what brings change in our character, because we are fighting, so to say, battle at a very basic level, at the level of the vrittis, at every moment. So that makes our life integrated also. So then our life becomes in consonance with our faith. What we believe in, we live that kind of life. That happens because of this smriti sadhana. That's why this is important. And then comes, this smriti sadhana leads to what is called chittaikagriya, or one-pointedness of the mind. The distractions become less and less, and mind becomes one-pointed. And this one-pointed mind is necessary in order to attain samadhi or practice samadhi, which is a state of deep concentration on a single object of meditation. That leads to knowledge, prajna, and this knowledge leads to paravairagya or supreme renunciation, and that leads to asamprajnata yoga. So these are the steps Patanjali calls, Vyasa Maharshi calls them as upayas. Upaya pratyayo yoginam. So these are the upayas, these are the means to attain to that asamprajnata samadhi. Now, next two sutras, Patanjali introduces one more upaya, you can say, one more element in this sadhana, and based on that, he creates, so to say, gradation of the yogis, of the sadhakas. Sadhakas are graded, so to say, and Vyasa Maharshi calls them Navayogin. He grades sadhakas into 9 types of yogis, Navayogina. So it's based on bifurcation, or gradation is based on 2 criteria. We'll see those criteria. The sutra is Tivra Samveganam Asannaha. That is the sutra. Tivra Samveganam Asannaha. Asannaha means very near. It is very near to those who have Tivra Samvega. We'll see what it means. So it is very near to those who have Tivra Samvega. Now what is very near? Obviously the Samadhi and the result of Samadhi, which is Kaivalya or Moksha. So the Asamprajnata Samadhi and its result, Moksha, both are very near to those who have Tivra Samvega. The Samvega word can be translated as yearning, and Tivra is intense yearning. So the Samadhi and its result, Kaivalya, they are very near to those who have intense yearning. That is the exact translation. Yearning can also, the samvega word can also be translated to mean sincerity. We can understand it better because, see, yearning is something which we cannot really develop. It comes. Sincerity is something that we can practice as it appears. The intense yearning, it has to come. But sincerity is what we can practice. We can be at most sincere, or middling sincere, or feebly sincere. That way. So he adds this one more element called Tivra Samvega or Samvega. As on one side it becomes an upaya, it becomes a means. On the other side it becomes a criteria to grade yoga. Intense yearning is necessary. If we have it, the samadhi and its result are very near to us. And the division that we talked of earlier comes in the next sutra, Mrudu Madhya Adhimatratvat Tatopi Vishesha. There is further division, Vishesha, based on middling, very mild, or abundance of what that Patanjali has not said. He just says there is further division based on Mridu, that is very mild, Madhya, that is middling, or Adhimatra, abundance. So based on that, there is further division. That's all he says. Asamarchi has put these two sutras plus the earlier sutra together to create, as I said, 9 grades of yogis. On one side, there is upaya, there is shraddha, then there is virya, smriti, and all that. These are the upayas. And on the other side, there is samvega, yearning or sincerity. That is also, so that is divided into 3. This samvega is divided into 3. There is mridu samvega, there is madhya samvega, there is tivra samvega. So somebody's intensity, somebody's yearning, somebody's sincerity could be very feeble, mridu. It could be madhya, it could be middling, or it could be tivra, it could be utmost or highest. Intense yearning, intense sincerity. So here we get 3 divisions of sincerity. It could be mridu, it could be madhya, it could be tivra. The samvega, mridu samvega, madhya samvega, and tivra samvega. You get 3 categories are there. And then comes the upaya. These upayas also could be in 3 categories. One may have very minimal of faith and enthusiasm and smriti. One could have middling of these upayas, middling faith and middling virya, utsaha, and middling smriti. And one could have adhimatra, that is abundance of faith, abundance of virya, utsaha, and abundance of smriti. So these upayas also have 3 gradations, so to say, and the intensity, yearning also has 3 gradations. When it comes to upayas, he calls them mrudu, madhya, adhimatra. You have very less or not in abundance, so to say. Mridu, upaya. Your faith is not very strong, weak faith. Or you can have a middling faith, or you can have abundance of faith. So these upayas could be at 3 levels. So also the yearning, the intensity of yearning also could be at 3 levels. It could be mridu samvega, madhya samvega, and tivra samvega. Based on these 3 and 3, he creates 9 kind of yogis. So those who have mridupaya, mridu samvega, they become the lowest. Their upaya, the sampat, so to say, the shraddha, smriti, virya they possess is very limited, very poor. And their sincerity, yearning is also very poor. So they become the first step, so to say, of the yogis. And those who have Adimatropaya, they have abundance of faith, abundance of virya, abundance of smriti, and Tivra Samvega, and intense yearning, they become the highest, so to say. So out of these 9, these are the two ends of this gradation. One is Mridupaya, Mridu Samvega, the other end is Adimatropaya, Tivra Samvega. These are, and in between are all the rest. But if we think about it, we feel that the samvega or the sincerity of yearning is more important. See, even if one has mridu upaya, may not have abundance of faith and all that, but there is intense yearning, there is intense sincerity, utmost sincerity, then whatever little faith is there, whatever little smriti is there, whatever little utsaha is there, that will be put to use fully. So this intensity or yearning or sincerity, this is more important, because that will put to use whatever capital we have, whatever resources we have, those will be put to use 100%. On the other side, one may have faith, but there is mridu samvega, there is not so much of sincerity. Then that person's capital, so to say, is unused. So this samvega is important. This samvega is what makes the difference, so to say, between the yogis. Anyway, these are 9 types of yogis that he talks of. The takeaway for us from this could be that we can add one more element to the upayas that he talked of earlier. We need sincerity. Sri Ramakrishna tells again and again, antarikata, vyakulata. So we need sincerity in our efforts. It counts. It is very important. And as I said, with sincerity, whatever little strengths we have, whatever little capital we have, capital of faith, capital of utsaha, capital of virya, capital of smriti, it can be put to full utilization if we have sincerity. So sincerity in that sense becomes one more upaya only, an additional upaya. We should have faith, virya, smriti, and this samvega. We should have that also. That is the takeaway from these sutras, because making these 9 and knowing about these 9 types of yogis is not really going to help us. We can arrange ourselves as to where we are and where we should go. But what's going to really help us is to factor in the concept of samvega or sincerity or yearning. That should be added to our list of upayas. So we should try to do this smriti sadhana very sincerely, with antarikata, with yearning. That will lead us further, faster. Having given these 2 sutras and adding one more element to the list of upayas, and in the process grading the yogis into 9 categories. The next sutra is quite interesting. The commentator asks a question before introducing the sutra, saying that now you are saying that those who have abundance of upayas, abundance of faith, etc., and tivra samvega, intense yearning, for them this yoga and its result are asannatama, nearest. Yoga becomes nearest to those who have abundance of capital, of shraddha, etc., and intense yearning. Is there any other way? Now, this seems based entirely on purushakar, on my own efforts. Is there any other way? Or is this the only way? A person who wants to advance, is this the only way? That person has to gain abundance of shraddha and virya and intense yearning. And that is the only way to go nearer and nearer to the asamprajñāta samadhi. Is that the only way, or is there any other way by which this asamprajñāta samadhi and its result come nearer to a yogi? So he's asking for an alternative. Is there an alternative? And by that question he introduces the sutra, next sutra, Ishvara Pranidhanat Va. That is the next sutra. Ishvara Pranidhanat Va. The Va is or, so it's an alternative. According to many, this is the Mukhya Kalpa. This is the first alternative or important alternative. What was told earlier becomes secondary according to some. This alternative, though Va is there, but this is Mukhya Kalpa. This is first alternative, first choice, so to say. And what is the alternative? Ishvara Pranidhanat. By devotion to Ishvara. That is what the sutra says. By devotion to Ishvara, Pranidhana. Through that, also, this samadhi and its result become very nearer to the yogi. Asannaha bhavati. Samadhi tatphalam cha asannaha bhavati. Ishvara pranidhanatva. That will be the completion of the sutra. So, what is Ishvara? Again, he will explain a further sutras. Pranidhana's explanation will also be given. But few points to note here are this yoga philosophy accepts the concept of Ishvara. Its sister branch, so to say, the Sankhyas, they are not advocates of the concept of Ishvara or the truth of Ishvara. They do not advocate Ishvara. The Sankhya's do not advocate Ishvara. These yogis, most of their metaphysics, they borrow from Sankhya, but they add this one metaphysical entity called Ishvara. This we don't find in the Sankhya's. Rest all metaphysics is same. Metaphysics means the ultimate reality, what is ultimately true. So about that, these yogis borrow heavily from Sankhya. That's why in this Yoga Sutra we don't find any metaphysics. Much. We don't find much of metaphysics. But because they just borrow it from Sankhya's. But they add this one element, one principle, one truth called Ishvara. It is one point to know. Second point to know is, how does this Ishvara Pranidhana takes us nearer to this Samadhi? For that the Bhashya says, Ishvara Pranidhanat Abhidhyana Matrena. When a devotee undertakes this Pranidhana, Vyasa Maharshi calls it Bhakti Visheshaha. It's a special kind of devotion. Special kind of devotion. Then Ishvara Abhibhutaha, that God or Ishvara becomes favorably disposed towards that particular yogi. And Abhidhyana Matrena, only by his wish, God's wish, by God's wish, he wishes that let this yogi attain to spiritual illumination. By such a wish, he makes Samadhi nearer to the yogi. This is the explanation of this sutra. So Pranidhana is a bhakti vishesha. It's a special kind of devotion. By that, Ishvara becomes favorably disposed towards that yogi, becomes gracious towards that yogi. And out of that grace, there is this abhidhyana, there is this desire in God which says, let this yogi have spiritual illumination. And only by that, abhidhyana matrena, only by that wish of the Lord, wish of Ishvara, you cannot call actually Lord, because the concept of Ishvara in yoga is different from the Vedanta and Bhakti. Just by that wish of Ishvara, the path becomes very easy for the yogi. So that is another upaya. Though Patanjali calls it Va, it is an alternative, but we can add it to the list of upayas that we can practice. There is no harm in doing that. The important point to note in this sutra are two. Ishvara has the capacity to make our spiritual life very smooth and take us nearer to Samadhi. Ishvara has that capacity. Ishvara has that grace, that favorable disposition, so to say. That is one point to note. We should have this attitude of pranidhana. We should have this sense of surrender, sense of dependence on God. That idea that we need help. That idea we should have. Only then will God help, will Ishvara help. So pranidhana is some kind of seeking of help from Ishvara, who has a favorable disposition and the capacity to bestow grace and take us nearer to Samadhi. So from our side, we need to seek that. That is what pranidhana means. And we can club this as an upaya, along with the other upayas that we are following. Because Samadhi and Prajna, these are far away from us. We can have faith, we can exercise, as a result of that faith, we can have utsaha, and we can try to exercise our memory of the truths in which we have faith, as described earlier. We can be as sincere as possible, that is that samvega, and we should have this pranidhana, the sense of surrender towards God. That way, we will be fit for Ishvara's grace. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.